Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is 6:30, Monday, December 9th, 2024. I'd like to call this Select Board meeting to order. Do we have any agenda changes or additions?
No.
So on the way in, I hope you all noticed the decorated doors in the office. It's nice to be able to say that they're decorated by staff, that all departments have been involved in this. And I know I've been in here, I was in here this morning and watching the staff in Morristown get excited about decorating their doors. The police department in particular was quite excited this morning. On that note, you are all welcome to vote on these doors. And so we have until Thursday at 12 noon. So if you want to chime in on what the doors that you like or the door that you like the most, I'm sure the staff would love to hear from you. And if you can do that by a paper ballot out in the hallway, or you can do this on Facebook. Don't ask me how to do it on Facebook, but you can do it on Facebook. So I'm sure Judy Alberry would be more than happy to help you with that. Before we get started tonight, or before we get started with a presentation from our HR director, I just have a few remarks. So I'd like to offer these remarks from the chair before we begin. This continued discussion of the fiscal year 2026 municipal budget. There's been much written on Front Porch Forum recently, and there's been much written in emails lately to myself, and I would suspect to other members of the Select Board and administration. Of course, we welcome these communications. The vast majority have been respectful, sometimes even apologetic about their comments regarding the recent proposals made regarding the fiscal year 2026 municipal budget. Unfortunately, there's also been a misleading dialogue. Some of this is based on perception, some of it's based on rumor, some of it's based on assumption rather than reality. The discussion of alternatives is important. Misinformation is not. Misinformation erodes our ability to find solutions to these budget challenges, and they are challenging challenges. Suggestions have been made that administration and the Select Board have not spread the burden of cuts across all departments. For example, and I quote from one of these emails, "The cuts should be equitably applied to all town departments and not shouldered by the library." I would like to highlight tonight how this proposed budget does in fact apply these cuts. And this is unfortunate to all departments by offering some examples of where the budget does in fact impact other departments. EMS. This proposed budget cuts new requested staff to replace significant overtime from 2 AEMTs to 1, a cut cost of approximately $92,000. EMS, this budget cuts equipment, a 75% reduction in funds for communication replacement equipment. This budget defers the purchase of a defibrillator, / monitor until next year, a cut of $40,000. In the Highway Department, this budget maintains a cut in highway personnel for a third year. This is approximately $107,000 cut. We're really down 2 drivers right now, which impacts our ability to plow roads as timely as desired, for example, yesterday. This budget, highway again, cuts the replacement of a 2006 loader scheduled for fiscal year 25-26. This will now be deferred for another year. This is an $88,000 cut. Highway again, this budget does nothing for sidewalks. At a minimum, we should be putting $125,000 a year into the repair and improvement of our sidewalks. Highway again. This budget does nothing for paving projects. 53% of our paved roads in this town are poor or very poor. We need a minimum, and this is from an independent contractor, we need a minimum of $500,000 to $800,000 a year. We need to do that every year for many years in the future to get our roads up to par. This budget, highway again, cuts uniforms by $6,000. Fire. This budget, our fire department, we have a firehouse right now that was built in 1968. And it's so inadequate in size that we're special ordering fire trucks that cost us additional hundreds of thousands of dollars so they can fit in that building. These are custom fire trucks that we're buying for this town. This budget, if not for one new tanker, the fire department budget would be down almost 6%, the overall budget. The only thing that keeps it in the black right now, if you want to think of it that way, keeps it in positive numbers, is the fact that we did get a new tanker recently. This budget cuts $5,000 for new equipment for the fire department. They asked for $10,000 worth of jacks. We're giving them half of that. Police, the police department. The police department's been asking for building improvements for as long as I've been on this board, and they're much needed, and they're costing the town. We spend significant money transporting individuals to St. Johnsbury. It takes 2 officers to drive them over there. It takes 2 officers to drive them back, and that's on our shoulders. It's because we have an inadequate cell. We have an inadequate place to hold these individuals. It would be really nice to have a female officer in this department. We don't. Not entirely because we don't have lockers for female officers, but that certainly doesn't welcome them as much as we might want. We don't have an evidence room. Right now, the police department's setting up folding tables in the hallway where they put their evidence out. We don't have an interrogation room. We don't have a proper interrogation room for this police department. We don't have an area for them to analyze drugs that they might be capturing, that they might be finding. They don't even know if they're drugs or not, but they don't have a place to analyze these substances. I know when I went on a tour of that building 2 years ago, they were using their lunchroom to do this kind of work. You can imagine what that's like. That's now turned into office space, so they don't even have a lunchroom. We have insufficient staff in the police department, and therefore we have very high overtime. And we all know what's happened with crime in this town. It's not just Morristown, I know that, but it's happening here too. And we need money to throw at the police department, and we don't have it. Town government. This budget vacates the rec coordinator position. This budget decreases salaries by approximately $145,000. That's across town government. This budget defers maintenance for the noise house of approximately $67,000. That's maintenance that's badly needed in that building. That building needs to be renovated. It's not in this budget. This building, the Tegu Building, needs a new roof. This building needs security features. It was a year ago, year and a half ago, I had the honor of marrying my daughter. And I had to deliver the marriage license to Craftsbury, to the town clerk's office. Craftsbury has much better security than Morristown does at the front of its town clerk's office. This budget cuts Pleasant View Cemetery. They asked for $50,000. We've cut it by $25,000. The proposed budget is cut it, I'm sorry. Town government, this budget cuts $80,000 from the Morristown Centennial Library. This budget for town government even cuts cleaning for this building from 2 times a week to once a week. These total cuts are quite substantial, as you can guess. For general government, we're talking $412,000+, over $412,000. That includes the library. For police, it's over $3,000. For EMS, it's over $172,000. For fire, it's almost $12,000. And for highway, we're looking at over $83,000. That's a grand total of almost just shy of $700,000. All departments have shouldered the burden of this budget. As we continue this budget discussion tonight and next week and beyond, I want to remind everyone it is not just 1 or 2 programs that are being affected negatively. We live in a world today where locally, statewide, nationally, voters are extremely concerned about tax burdens. We hear about it in here on a regular basis. The budget so far presented is responsible, albeit draconian in the words of some, and a very reasonable place for us all to be and to move forward with this discussion. These discussions will not be easy, but my hope is that we can consider all of these issues in a factual and honest manner. And I just want to end by saying thank you to Tina, our finance director, Abby, who's not here today, your assistant finance director, Els, who's going to give a presentation in just a second, our HR director, our town manager, Brent, and our town, I call her our assistant town manager, Judy. So thank you to all of them that have put in so much hard work, and developing a budget for any town is hard work. And I just wanted to set the record straight that this budget, creates burdens across the board. So I will end there, and I will pass the,
Can I just add one quick thing?
I'm just going to say, I'll pass the microphone over to Els right after you.
Just all these people that we mentioned that are doing all this work on the budget, not a single one of them get an hour of overtime. And they are all working 50 to 60 hours. This was done by changing of contracts and some things. So just keep that in mind.
Els, the floor is yours.
Hey, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Els Thompson, the HR director with the town. So great to see you. I have everybody on camera today on video. We have put together a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to share. Judy's just pulling it up, give us a moment, but we are going to dive into an evaluation of the summer camp program. It was discussed last week. There's a possibility of not moving forward with the summer camp for its upcoming 2025 summer. Some liabilities were discussed. So we just wanted to take a moment just to clarify what some of those may look like, might include, and also go into some detail as to options if we were open to considering summer camp for the summer, what we would need in order to make that happen potentially. Okay, so the agenda today, we are going to touch on one of the main concerns is staffing challenges. We did experience some of that in 2024, and I do want to take a moment to say we also had some fabulous summer camp counselors in 2024 that went above and beyond. They were just absolutely excellent. So this is, in no way to diminish their efforts and contributions to the town. But we did see a smaller candidate pool last year. We started recruiting in February. We increased the hourly rate for our counselors last year. We did a hiring fair with formerly Johnson State College. We posted on Handshake. We really reached out to local schools, colleges, did some recruiting events, advertised for months, and it was definitely a challenge to get enough counselors and qualified counselors in those positions. We did have some turnover throughout the season that caused us to see some challenges with the desired ratios, counselor to child ratios for the program. And generally speaking, of course, when you have just less counselors on hand, less support staff, it does impact the overall quality of the program. This is a trend that is being recognized nationally. The Bureau of Labor Statistics is reporting about a 15% decrease in employees serving in recreational type roles currently compared to recent years past. We've been in communications with some other local municipalities. Unfortunately, this doesn't seem to be isolated to our area. Like for example, Waterbury is scaling down massively for their summer camp program, really cutting back numbers. And there was a news article posted that last year the Barry Municipal Swimming Pool was forced to be closed for the majority of the summer due to staff shortages. And to go on to the next slide, thanks Judy. Lifeguard shortages is also a trend that we're seeing across the board nationally and also in Vermont. Some pools and beaches were really impacted this last summer. The services that could be offered and hours available for those types of water activities were really limited. And we also saw a bit of a drop in our counselors that were interested in getting lifeguard certified. We do cover those costs as a town. And of course, water safety is a key activity of our summer camp program. Gotta beat the heat. We had a hot one last summer. So it's really imperative, of course, that water safety is always a top priority to us for summer camp. And the next slide touches on the fact that our summer camp is historically an unlicensed program. Since we do lack facilities, we don't have the option of exploring becoming a licensed program at this time. There are some key differences between licensed and unlicensed programs, generally speaking. Unlicensed summer camp programs, since the staff are seasonal, mostly we are employed, the counselors are students that are in high school. And we're, grateful for them freeing up their summers to come and work with us. But since it is a seasonal position for them, they do have limited opportunities to get those certifications and training that is required by licensed programs for full-time employees in the childcare industry. We also have seen a short window of opportunity for training of our counselors. Like this past season, we had 2 days orientation period because school ended pretty late to make up for snow days. Some of those differences with experienced people in the childhood education field as opposed to seasonal counselors is just how they are trained to handle medical emergencies, allergic reactions, supervision of high-risk activities. Of course, we take the time to do as much training as we can, but there are more training opportunities available and time to do so in licensed programs. Also for licensed programs, the state of Vermont requires immunization records to be submitted for campers in an effort to decrease the spread of potentially infectious diseases. We don't have that requirement being in the licensed program. And there was another camp that closed last summer, 2024, early due to the spread of a similar virus. And the financial deficit. Last year's program, we did see a financial deficit of just over $23,000, as indicated on the slide there, and that does not include the recreation coordinator salary or benefits. There was an initial goal for the program to be self-sustaining through the application of grants. That was affected a bit by not having a downtown designation, which will hopefully change going forward. We have seen some high operating costs and insurance premiums that was touched on in the budget meeting last week. Those types of high-risk activities that summer camp falls within from an insurance standpoint. You see those premiums go quite a bit. And our transportation and other costs are relatively on the high end, typically just due to limited facilities available for use within our little area here. And we have gotten confirmation from our VLCT insurance coordinators that if we were to pause the summer camp program this upcoming summer, potentially, that we would see a decrease in those insurance rates that we could apply elsewhere throughout the budget. So now we're going to look at, kind of change courses a bit and go over what we would need to execute the summer camp program potentially in the summer. That would be for our program serving 120 campers. That is what we had for registrations this past summer, and a 1-to-8 counselor to camper ratio. So we would ideally have a recreation coordinator position. Once again, this person would have general oversight of the entire program, cover all logistics, management, counselors, be the direct report from the summer camp director. The hourly rate range is listed on the slide as well. I think it would be easiest if this person was a full-time year-round role. I think it could be challenging for somebody to come in as a seasonal employee in this role. If they were here, prior to the summer starting, there would be time for planning, rollout, maybe applying for grant sponsorships, that kind of thing. They could be involved in the counselor candidate selection process as well. Then we have a summer camp director role. So this person would be on site day to day, managing all the counselors in the program. We would recommend 6 lead counselors, that's what we had last year, and 12 to 14 full-time counselors as well. And published are the hourly rates for our program last year. It may be advisable to consider increasing that a little bit for next summer if we were to kind of try to focus on well-qualified candidates with more experience. Of course, higher pay is going to attract those types of folks. And this is what we would look at for required counselor training. Lifeguard certification, we'd like a minimum of at least 8 certified lifeguards for our program for water safety purposes. First aid and CPR certification, that's always been a requirement, always will be. We would like to build in a training program through Vermont Recreation and Parks Association Camp Staff Training Program. They hold that in Burlington for once a year. And we would also like to ensure that there's at least a 1-week training opportunity for our counselors here at the town to make sure plenty of time to go over everything and everyone feels very well equipped and knowledgeable. So that may slightly impact the start date of the camp depending on when school gets out. So that would have to be evaluated. Excuse me. So here we have an overview of the budget, a snapshot. So if we were to roll out summer camp again for the upcoming summer potentially, this is the impact it would have on the budget if we were to employ a year-round full-time recreation coordinator position like we have in years past. So there's two columns there. The one on the left is the budgeted amount for 24-25, if you can see that. So if we roll out the program with the recreation coordinator this summer, we have about a 4.30% increase over what was spent this past summer. You can see the highlighted numbers down there, thank you. Part of the increase is due to the insurance rates going up, since this would be a full-time year-round position. Of course, they would be benefit eligible. And the difference between, as you can see on the bottom line, we have a total expenses number, and then we deducted the income from the recreation program, and that is registration fees and donations that were received. So if we were to roll out this, the impact it would have on the overall budget, the currently proposed budget, it would bring it up to 6.1% increase instead of the 4.4. And the next slide is similar to the one we just looked at. However, this is the budget impact if the recreation position were to be seasonal, the recreation coordinator. So they would still maintain oversight of the program, have the full responsibilities. However, this would be with them coming on in May. Again, may pose some challenges timing wise. However, because this would be a seasonal position, there you go on the bottom, Judy, thank you. So that highlighted area, the total would be about $48,184 needed from taxpayers ultimately, which is a decrease of about 63% from this past summer. And the overall impact it would have on the budget in total would be about 5%. So it raised the budget increase from 4.4% to 5% overall. And last but not least, we have logistical requirements. So one challenge, significant I would say, that we have to face is that the PA Gymnasium is going to be closed for the summer of 2025. They're doing renovations. I believe Brent has a meeting coming next week with the superintendent to further discuss logistics. But the recommended space needs for Vermont Child Care regulations are 35 square feet of indoor space per child and 75 feet of outdoor space per child. So if you multiply that by the 120 campers that we had registered, we're looking at indoor space needed of about 4,200 square feet and outdoors about 9,000 square feet. So that is pretty significant. We can certainly put our creative caps on and, you know, do whatever we can to think outside the box space wise, but we really need to, you know, ensure the campers have restrooms, are safe from the elements, heat advisories, have available water, food accessibility, safe food storage, and an emphasis this year for the program in order to try to decrease some of those travel expenses would be to host more activities rather than consistently having the campers commute to other locations. If we could bring in more visitors, activities, and things for them to do, that would be a bit easier on the budget. So having a space that was conducive to that would minimize travel would be ideal. So that being said, we are certainly open to any suggestions for space. If anyone has any ideas throughout the community, we can put our community email address up here on the screen. Feel free to share. And,
We didn't get access.
I'm just, yeah, I'll just, yeah, one sec. So, thank you, Els. I'll give you a chance in just a second. Thank you, Els, for the presentation. It certainly puts the summer rec program into perspective in regards to this budget as well. So I appreciate that. I'm first going to open this up to the board for questions, comments. Maybe questions or comments on Elsa's presentation or the presentation from Brent last week, or my comments for that matter. So anybody want to chime in? And then I will open it up to the public in just a second.
I definitely have comments. For those of you who don't know me, I was a professional dancer for 40 some odd years. Extensive training in children. I have run 2 dog sled companies. I worked for EMEAC, running high-speed sled companies, high-speed sled. I can tell you, I was also up at Lake Elmore, so I witnessed this recreation camp every Tuesday. I can tell you that both of the dog sled companies do not know dog sleds anymore, largely because of liability, insurance, and just sheer risk factor. UMIAC has, their high-speed sled has gone away because of liability. I have massive amounts of years of training, and I can say that to send a child off to a camp where you do not have highly experienced, certified counselors is a high risk. I have witnessed it. This was one of my objections last year, that everyone tried to pay off as a personality, and it was not. I know what it takes. The fact that we do not have a building, the fact that we are not a licensed facility, the childcare tax that now every employer is paying. And so everybody understands that if an employee is making $20 an hour, that's costing the company $183 per year per employee. We are not eligible for that money because we are not a licensed, certified childcare facility. So you now have all of these businesses in town who now have a new expense, which generally means they're probably going to be hiring less people, which is a downside. It adds cost to it. Again, adds cost to everything, so it's another inflationary item to add to the cost. I think our past coordinator did an amazing job. I felt like that we threw her to the wolves, knowing the facts that I know. The job that she had to do was literally next to impossible. I really felt like we set her up to fail because we cannot get the staff that we need. And the stress that it must have caused her when you have a 16-year-old who just decides she's not going to show up, puts you in huge jeopardy. I watched this program and I can say there were 4 teens up there who work for the Vermont State Parks, who literally would not work Tuesdays and Thursdays because they had worked the year before and they saw the chaos. And they were like, we do not want to be part of it. There was great improvements last year, I will say. We got a better staff. However, I've also worked 15 years with Burlington Parks and Rec. Every single person that works for the rec department up there that's full-time have master's degrees in childcare. They are required to take ongoing classes in safety and that. Even they have trouble getting qualified people, partially because people just don't want to do it anymore. And the seasonal programs, they just simply don't, and they have huge benefits. If anybody wants to do it, they want to work for Burlington because of their huge success rate. And, and I can tell you, I've driven by the Waterbury, I never saw the Waterbury pool open this year, ever. Never saw it open. I watched it open. Yeah, I never saw it open.
Laura, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah. You can call me a liar if you want to. I know what I saw, please.
Folks, please let her talk.
Well, this is what I saw. I didn't say it wasn't open. Please, that's why I never saw it open. Okay, that does not mean it was open, so please quit the accusation. We can look at dates, but I could, again, being up at Elmore, to see all these kids, 100 kids coming in 2 buses and literally play in the grass. They played in the grass because they didn't have lifeguards, So, and it was not Anna's fault. There's, there just was not, Elmore will not even do lifeguards anymore. They will not have that. So there's just huge, and again, as what I said last year, it was simply too early. We need things in place, like, facilities where we can house children safely, look at it long-term, and also, the number of children is decreasing. We're paying we're gonna have double-digit budgets this year, and they're already saying next year because of the school. Taxpayers are getting hit tremendously, and we're paying huge amounts of money for school systems. And just when you start looking at big picture, nobody's saying they don't want a rec program. We just have to look at and this is where I'm coming from, the full dynamics. And one of the reasons I wanted a manager was because we have an impartial person who's highly educated and qualified and could come in and look at everything impartially. And I think the budget that he presented, it reflects exactly some of the concerns I had last year. And I kept saying last year there was going to be some harsh realities. We now have since then, anybody's homeowner's insurance and car insurance has gone up over 33% with the floods. Social Security, we're getting a 2.5% raise. Unfortunately, inflation is now 2.9, so we just took a 0.4% hit.
I thought we were talking about the
And I'm just saying that you can't.
Okay, folks, Laura.
I will get off.
Okay,
So
thank
what
you.
I'm saying is you can't look at this as one thing. You have to look at big picture, and I will say that that's what Brent did. The big picture is that we have to make serious cuts, and I think this is too early.
Okay, thank you, Laura.
Yeah.
Thank you, Laura. Other select, just so everyone understands, we're doing what we've always done. We're giving the board a chance to offer comments, and I will be opening this up for community comments when we're done. When we're done. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, we couldn't read on the screen, we didn't get copies.
That's what I wanted to ask.
Just hold on.
But we don't know what the presentation was, she talked about numbers. we didn't see it.
Brian, we'll see what we can do. Right now, I'm running a meeting and I have a select board member who wants to offer a comment. Go ahead.
So if ultimately at the end of the budget discussion come January, we're contemplating putting a pause on the recreation summer program. Are there other alternatives for families within Morristown, either in Stowe or Hyde Park? Are we looking at, other available space, programs that are already established? Or is there any contemplation within the community or just outside the community to start a recreation program? I would be interested in knowing what the alternatives could be so that families want to participate in a recreation program have alternatives if Morristown ultimately doesn't do this.
Absolutely, yeah. We have been putting feelers out there throughout the community and reaching out to some of the licensed programs to gauge their capacity and see if they would have any availability to potentially partner with us, help alleviate some of that strain, offer facilities. Reached out to some nonprofits. We've certainly been exploring all options. We definitely want to, make sure.
Have you had any feedback at this point?
I'm sorry, what?
Have you had any feedback from any of the alternate?
Some of the feedback is that facilities could be a problem. We've heard that multiple times. Yeah, go ahead.
So, reached out to Waterbury and Stowe. Stowe does not have the capacity. Waterbury is limiting, they already limit for their own residents. Waterbury limits their residents. And there had been, potential, I'd heard potential, not directly, that Waterbury was evaluating their program. They are moving forward, but there are limits. And we spoke with Stowe, and they are having the same issues that we experienced last year. You ideally would like to recruit paraprofessionals from schools. You'd like to recruit college students, and you'd like to recruit high school students. What they had the same issues that we experienced, difficulty in hiring, and then a very, very small window to put people through the training process and have a 7-week program. There's burnout in the program. And, it's not just concern for the youth of the community that are within the summer camp program, but also the people who are staffing it. And we did have a lot of reports of burnout. So I want to again reiterate that this is not an easy decision whatsoever. I submitted my proposal. Before I submitted that proposal, we were working with a nonprofit to see if we might be able to work something with a nonprofit. That nonprofit, the facility closed. We've been communicating with other municipalities about potential capacity there. We're not finding a solution. So, it's not like we took this lightly, and it's not like we're giving up. So I really want to thank Els for the research that she has put in, the follow-up questions that I've had for her, and her involvement along with other staff, because, at times we have 4 staff people talking with other organizations, other municipalities to try to discuss these issues.
Can I ask one question about burnout? Can you ask, will any of these potential programs be eligible for the child care? Because that hopefully will be available to a lot of folks, that there will be funding for you to pay, but they will have to be licensed, so I just wanted to.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was potentially absorbed somehow by an established license program.
Yeah.
George, Richard?
I feel like we haven't, the board really hasn't, just so everyone knows, we didn't see this budget until last Monday. So we weren't aware that these potential things were coming down the pipe. I do stand by the fact that I think we need to do some sort of a recreation program in our community. I'm concerned by the things that I've seen from Els about the liability and the staffing of the camp. But I mean, it's also the same as McDonald's can't find people to work for them. And it's a super complicated issue to me, that we need to have a program because of all the benefits it provides to our kids. But it's kind of like, what do you want? The scales are there. And what are we willing to accept, and what are we willing to pay? This is a really hard one for me personally, for a lot of reasons.
George?
Yeah, Else, a couple of questions. On the two budget pages, the two budget impacts. One with a full-time, year-round full-time person, the other one with the seasonal.
Yep.
Is it fair to me to assume that the expenditure side of both of those budgets would it then give us enough capacity to have the trained staff that we need? Now, obviously, that's a hiring question that never can get fully answered until actuality rolls. But do you believe
Yes.
that there's money in here to fund the 8 lifeguards and all the other safety issues that you identified in your presentation?
It would allow us to hire the staff on slide 7 with that structure and that oversight. That, I think each and every one of those positions would be essential to a successful program. But yes, this budget snapshot.
You need a version. Okay, second question. On both of those budgets, there's a total income of $122,800 projected for '26. What's that made up of?
That is registration fees and donations received. There could be a possibility of exploring the idea of potentially increasing the registration fees a bit. Nobody likes to do that, of course, but it could help to offset numbers if we were to explore that. We have gotten some feedback from other local municipalities that are charging a bit more, a bit higher weekly rate than we have.
How much of that 122.8 is registration fees? Ballpark.
Well, 102,
Oh, thank you.
102, there's $20,000 in donations and sponsors and 102 in camp registration fees.
Okay, 102,000 of camp registration fees, based on the 120 kids, roughly.
Right.
Okay,
From last year's rate.
from last year's.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I believe so. I
Okay.
believe it was last year's rate, I don't think there was a.
So has there been any calculation of increasing the income, reducing the tax dollars by some type of rate increase? And I understand that some families have 2 and 3 kids in this program, and what appear to be less tweaks, when you have 2 and 3 kids, it's substantial. Has there been any exploration of what kind of changes would need to minimize the tax burden?
I haven't done any calculations to increase the fees and all that. I was using figures that I was given prior to Anna leaving.
Yep,
So I'm not 100%, I mean, I do have her figures, but I don't know. All she said she didn't say much for the revenue side, I don't believe. Let me just double check that
Okay.
for you.
thank you, Tim.
Well, the other piece of that too, George, is I believe the program ran a $23,000 deficit this year,
Okay,
this past year. But that didn't include the recreation programs, directors, prorated salary dedicated to the program and benefits and such. So it's not, it's going to be a cost to taxpayers regardless, because even if you raise the fees $23,000 across the program, you still have the outsource of the position as such.
yeah, I guess I would like to know the number. I'm not saying I would want to impose that number. But let's look at the least expensive program, which is the seasonal rec coordinator, just.
Okay, this is what, I do have a rate sheet here that was presented with her budget.
Yep,
If you want, I can copy it and you can see it's made up of different formations of one-child families and whether they come weekly, whether they go the entire summer. There's a bunch of different things to come up with 102.8.
okay.
If you'd like to see that.
No, what I would ask, if the rest of the board is interested in, personally I would be, is stages of increasing that chart by some mechanics, whether it's just 3% across the board, 5% across the board, whatever seems to work. And I think if I know there's a difference between resident tuition, I'll use that term, and non-resident tuition.
Yes, there is.
Of what kind of income growth there would be if we did some kind of across the boards on that. That's not a proposed 25, 26, is it? That's a last year rate
This is
sheet?
this is what she proposed for the budget that we're talking about.
Okay. And do you know if that's an increase from?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I'd have to look at my other book to
Yeah.
see, but
Yeah.
it might be a little bit, but it's not a lot.
Yeah, because I'm the same place that Chris is, Richard Craig, I'm sorry, not Chris, mistaken. That if we can do this safely and without, I mean, we're always gonna have some liability, but not an overexposure, which I think Al's is telling us right now, we've got a too high a risk of liability in what's going on now. I would like to see this happen. On the other hand, I can't, in my mind, find a place where we can add tax dollars to this budget. So what I'm trying to find out is there a place where we can break even with this budget financially for the summer? And what impact that's going to do on people that are in the audience that have got kids in the program, and how that's going to impact them? And can they bear that kind of a burden? I don't know the answer to that, but I'd like to know the answer to that.
Yeah, at minimum, we would have to, if you did everything part-time, at minimum, we would have to raise rates enough to cover $43,000.
Yeah, I agree.
So I don't know how feasible that is or how cost-effective that's going to be for people, but if you wanted to break even, that's what you have to do.
And that's what I guess if you could, that's the goal. But if after you do that, you go, oh my God, people will never be able to afford
Yeah, they
this.
can't afford it.
Keep that number, because I'd like to know it, but chop it down some way. So there's a $10,000 shortfall, there's a $20,000 shortfall. Till we get to the 48 is where we are right now, which is the sheet you've got.
I'd like to say too, just because the program has been structured as it has been for, the woman said last week, 50 years, I mean, we've made changes, obviously, probably since then. But there's nothing saying that we can't restructure it the way it's done to save some money. I mean, that's kind of what you're saying as well.
I am.
Like,
I'd like to have a
modify
program,
it.
but I don't
Right.
think, I can't support even a $48,000 push in the budget from where we are now.
I don't disagree. I just think that I think there's ways that we can be creative and restructure the program and maybe meet some of the needs and the liability concerns that we have.
And I would say, Richard, that, I mean, the first thing we have to do is assure parents that when their kids are in our charge, that they're safe. And if we can't do that, we can't run a program. We shouldn't run a program. It's just, I don't want to be on the other end of the phone call when someone says, you know, we've had this incident up at the lake or up at school or wherever it is. And when you say, well, what the heck happened? The answer is not a good answer.
Well, and can I?
Thank you.
I
If I can just jump in, thanks, George. People in the audience know that I've been in education my entire career. I've been a teacher for 45 years now, and I'm still teaching. My children benefited from this program. All three of my kids went to Elmore. And it really does pay me to think that 120 children in this town, if that's what it is, might not be able to benefit from a summer rec program next summer. The liability issues are tremendous. I said to my wife last night, so I was prepping for this, that, we're just one bad accident away from, something that's far from good. I'll just leave it at that. I am certainly interested in alternatives. I like what you brought up, George. And I would say, what would the rate increase need to be to make this a a cost-neutral program. I mean, that maybe is a place to start. Find out what that number is.
Yes.
I'm doing kind of a back of the envelope calculation in my head right now. It sounds like it's in the hundreds of dollars per child, but maybe closer to, well, I'll just leave it at that. But it would be interesting to look at those alternatives and see what a cost-neutral fee would be. The other thing I would just throw out, and I just say it's my understanding that some communities in the surrounding area have been able to have a town-school partnership, or better yet, a school summer rec partnership. I've said this to a number of people, why is the town in the kid business? And schools are in the kid business. And schools have expertise. Schools have certified staff. Schools have certified teachers. And I've already talked to administration about reaching out to the school and finding out what might be there. Because I would rather have somebody, I think we all would, rather have somebody who works with kids year round rather than somebody who's just joining on for a couple of weeks in the summertime and understands the nuances of being around kids and understands a lot of what George is talking about here. So I would like to explore that option. I would like to find out what's going on there. I know these teachers, they spend 10 months with the kids. They need a couple of months off in the summertime. You're not going to find a lot of them that want to take their entire summer and continue with kids, but there's some. They're out there. There's paras. There's behavioral interventionists. There's people that work in the school. So I would like to explore that option as well. So I welcome what you're saying. Those are my thoughts for now. I'm just gonna, I know there's members of the audience and on Zoom that probably want to talk. So other comments from the
Yeah,
board?
I have one quick. Have we looked, towns are also getting away from events largely because of the liability. By contracting them out, the town creates an arm's distance, so, everybody gets sued, but like right now, we take the full brunt. So if something happens to a child and we get sued for millions of dollars, the taxpayers take that. Have you looked at, and is it a possibility to talk to some of these childcare like Apple Tree, there's different ones out there, and basically contracting them to run the program for us? Okay, you guys can tell us why, but just,
So we haven't reached out to any for-profit childcare programs yet. We're willing to do, whatever we need to do to try to find solutions.
Yeah, it's an option.
And, but we have had an offer that we partner with a nonprofit, and that nonprofit, but we pay for the insurance liabilities. And that's a no-go, because we have less control over the quality of the program, and we're taking on all the liability. So, I didn't want to prejudge that. I had Tina reach out to Passive Insurance, and they just confirmed that would be a no-go. So we have to be very careful about who we might partner with, if we were to partner, and we want to make sure, above all, I have a child, I have nieces and nephews. We want to make sure that whatever this community is doing, that we're doing everything possible to put the children of this community in the best care possible. And I understand there's liabilities with everything. So we're doing this. Don had a good point in a conversation last week, and I'm pursuing, that avenue. We're willing to take, ideas from the community, and try to see what solutions there might be. You bring up, increasing the costs so that we're, not operating the red. Again, that's not the only issue here. If we take on somebody part-time to fill in for recreation coordinator, and we have to have a full-time, or a summer camp director as well, it's again, finding that qualified individual, maybe a paraprofessional from the school system, but we have to then, do we shrink from 7 weeks to 5 weeks, so that we have time to train them up, that we have time to train up the counselors that need to go to, to lifeguard and to other training that the state does offer to make sure that even high school students and college students are as trained as possible.
I need to mention that in these calculations and figures for recreation, it does not include any liability insurance premiums. That's included in our general fund budget, and I have not, been able to, isolate just the recreation. So the 43,000 you're talking about is more than that. I mean, if you wanted to, because without the program, our town liability insurance would go down. So if, I'm just making that.
Can you capture that number?
Yeah. I can ask.
Okay.
I can ask her how much that is.
Obviously, we can't function without that level of liability insurance,
Right.
and that cost of summer camp liability needs to be factored into this discussion, not into the general fund discussion. If it hasn't been included in the budget, the proposed budget, which it sounds like it hasn't.
Well, no, the recreation insurance is included in the general fund proposed budget, but it has not been broken out in this.
Okay, I gotta ask the question a different way, Tina. Have we already gotten the proposed budget, the amount of money that's gonna take to fund the liability insurance for a rec program if we opened it?
Not just the rec program. I've got everything.
But does that everything include the rec program?
Yes, it does.
Okay, that's the number, that's what I was looking for. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm just going to, before I open it up for community comment, any other comments from the board?
Thank you.
No.
Richard? Brent? I know you're not on the board, but any comments?
No.
Okay, so I will open this up for community comment. I'll just remind folks that next Monday, we do have a regular select board meeting, and following that select board meeting, we will continue the conversation on the budget, and it will continue at meetings beyond that as well. So given that, I'm going to ask individuals that do want to comment to come up, identify yourself. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to speak. I'm going to give everyone one opportunity to speak because I have a feeling there's a number of people that probably do want to voice some comments. So I will ask you to try and be succinct if you can, and I don't want to, but I will cut you off at 2 minutes just to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak tonight. So with that said, please come up to the microphone, identify yourself.
Martin Green. In the past, regarding certain issues like sidewalk, I think last year with the property taxes, things were broken down into how much it would cost each taxpayer. Say $17, extra a year for this or for that. And that was really helpful to see those concrete kind of numbers. So notwithstanding any other solutions and proposals to be able to continue this rec program, I think it might be helpful to be able to do something like that with the additional amount of money that's needed for the program to say, okay, how much is this going to cost taxpayers? Because ultimately, this is something we should pay for and not begrudge having to pay for. This is our future. These children, they're not a commodity. They are, we need to invest in them. And so it's worth it as residents, as taxpayers, to be able to pay for this. This is what our taxes do. They pay for the concerns of our town and especially our children. So I'm just wondering if there's some way we could break that down at some point. I know it's a lot to ask, and there's a lot of factors involved. But anyway, it's just a thought that something like that would be helpful because I think it's so important.
Thank you, Martin. Anybody else? By the way, folks on Zoom, once the audience in the room has exhausted its questions and comments, I'll go to people on Zoom.
Hi, everyone. Allison Link, 35 Clark Ave, with my personal hat on. Many things to say. Let's see. We're a community, and I don't hear that in this room from select board what I've heard tonight. I haven't been to a meeting in some time, but I don't hear that we're a community. I don't hear that we're focused on youth. I hear risk, 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 and not protective factors. And I like to talk in terms of protective factors, which means buffering our youth and our families and our whole community from harm. And the summer rec program is part of, I think, a bigger picture of recreation. There are many people here who have been part of recreation in our town before, on committees over the years. And, I was part of restarting the recreation efforts after a hiatus and a withdrawal from the budget, and then that coming back at that time, even with trying to get a skate park in town or a bike pump track or other things, that was squashed by the select board. Then the recreation, as soon as Anna was hired, the committee was dissolved without any notice of the recreation committee being dissolved. So I personally think there's so much potential for recreation and for all of what we can do here, including a full-time director. Every town comparable to our town in numbers, we are a hub of this Lamoille Valley. It's not just what affects our town. We are a hub. Our population itself is enough to sustain a rec director who is able to really enhance recreation for all. That we're talking about equity here. We're talking about our kids here. We're talking about protective factors. And when I hear a select board member make, sorry, I want to quote this because I was disturbed. Where is it? There we go. No. I know Don's going to cut me off, but it was your quote, Don. It was, why is the town in the business of kids? Honestly, I can't understand that comment. We are in the business of kids. We're in the business of our families. Is that my buzzer, Judy? Well, that's what I'll end on. Lots to hear from me in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Allison.
I'll be quick, because I echo everything everybody said, Carrie Yaten. But also I think we have to remember this isn't just the impact on the kids, and my kids love rec, and I want them to be safe. That's most important to me. I hear you talking about lawsuits. I want my kids to be safe, believe me. But also the impact on the working parents. This is affordable childcare for people for the entire summer when they have nowhere else to send their kids. Childcare is always also really hard to find right now in general, never mind affordably. If this program is gone, you've got maybe 100 families with nowhere to put their kids for the summer and no way to get to work. So it's another layer to that.
Thank you, Carrie.
Hi, my name's Ryan. I live right here in town, West High Street. And I agree 100% with the words of Ally and Martin and Jerry that came before me. Childcare is not a business, it's our future. And when we invest in the future of our kids, we are also adding value at our town. You're making this a place where people want to come because you're offering things for their family and you're showing them that their tax dollars are going somewhere. So that's all I have to say. Oh, one more thing. Relying on private companies, private childcare companies, neither reduces the cost nor makes it better. I mean, you might be able to make the argument that they have been doing this for longer, but in our experience, at least with the company that was named earlier, it was much more expensive, and it still ended up reducing the amount of hours that was offered through the public preschool this year. So we're really not in favor of that.
Ryan, last name? Farrell. Thank you.
I'm Joe Gardner. I'm a youth development coordinator in our community. I work with youth who are in foster care. I'm also a parent of two really great little girls at our elementary school. And a lot of the community members here had said like my objective point I wanted to make. So I'm going to just make a really quick subjective point. Also, it's just stating that like this has got to be insurmountably hard to try to make some of these decisions. And like, I think all of us here understand that. But if you're a kid in this town right now, oh man, your community center is going to be shut down on the 20th. Maybe no camp this summer. The library funding, what's that going to do for like the program for kids? I hear that you're looking to have an equitable cut across the line. But if you're a kid in this town right now, it can't feel super equitable. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Joe.
Gardner.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Farrell. I'm a little disturbed by the direction we're going. As Joe mentioned earlier, we're cutting all these wonderful programs for our children, and we sound like we're becoming a police community. We're more interested in investing in the police department. What's going to happen when our kids don't have anywhere to go? What are they going to do? Are they going to go out, play outside? Are they going to break windows? Are they going to commit crimes? Because they have no community. They have no friends. They have nowhere to go. So what direction are we going when we say, hey, these programs are not as important as our police department? And our police department is just going to keep growing. And is that what we want to look like? We want to look like Los Angeles? Like, I came from there, I know. And you don't want to cut community projects and community service so that you become a policed state or policed city. And that is the direction we're going. Our priority is becoming what we think is important and not what truly means community. And that is our children, our kids. And so if we don't invest in our children now, we won't have a future for our children later. We need to educate them. We need to make them feel like they're safe, that they can go somewhere, that they know family members that they can trust. And so I feel like my kids are everything, and you're stripping that from them. And I don't want to be here anymore. I want to leave. That's what I want to do. I want to go somewhere else. I want to sell my house and move somewhere else that cares. I want to go to Stowe because they care. They have a recreational program. I'm best friends with the recreational program. Kelly, director, she says it's possible here. She doesn't understand why we can't do it. She's like baffled by it. Why can't we do it here when they can do it there?
Thank you, Jasmine.
My name's Maggie Cleary, and I'm a taxpayer in Morrisville. I also work at the public library, which I don't want to get into the budget part of that right now at all, but just the personal part of that, which is that I think working at the public library gives me a really good view of this town and all of the different people in it. And I would encourage anybody who is looking to see what is going on in this town, the positive, the negative, to show up there and check it out. We have a lot of challenges, obviously, and a lot of things you touched on here, and your job is hard, and I am sorry that you have to do it. It's not something I would want to do. So I guess I would like to look at it and kind of give you the more positive aspect of this, which is that it's not all bad. And I know when we look at the budget and the pressures and the health insurance premiums and for example, I don't need to be lectured about the rising cost of living because we are also the people who pay the taxes. The working parents of this town are also the people who are paying the taxes. So we do understand the pressures. Our health insurance premiums are also rising, and we are not protected from that with an automatic raise in our businesses, right? So that's something we're absorbing on a personal level, and it's something we're absorbing through our tax rate. However, there is a lot of potential in this town, and we are seeing it every day at the public library. We are seeing it in the kids. People are showing up because they want to be part of a community. And that is something that you cannot buy with any sort of budget. And it is the thing that is going to make it okay. Giving people spaces to get together and remember that they are neighbors and remember that we are a community and that we can solve problems, and not everything that has value costs money, like showing up and making eye contact. This stuff matters. Please don't forget that it matters. Really.
Thank you, Maggie. Others?
I'll talk to you, Don. I'm Brian Eden. I am also a resident and an elected official in town, but today I'm just a resident. You made a good point at the beginning, Don, about kind of all the stuff you deal with in the emails. You talked a lot about misinformation. And then yet, like you just said, during the harangue that we all sat through, there were 4 or 5 pieces of just lies and misinformation that you're passing on to the board. And I've said this before on other boards that I've been on. Unfortunately, I can't be on boards anymore because this group is so dysfunctional on stuff like this that you just pump out that information that's not real and ignore real stuff. One of the things you mentioned earlier was experts. Did you have an expert come in and give us kind of the lowdown on how this could work? Is that what I think you said? We had an expert come in?
No, I didn't say expert.
You did. You said we had an expert come in and do or we were gonna have an expert come in and do a look into how this works and all that kind of stuff?
No, I did not.
Oh, so how do we know? We don't even know the number yet, right? You just said we don't even know what the liability insurance is. We don't know the numbers you're talking about. And yet here we're talking about cutting the programs for all the children in town without having the correct information. We don't know what the insurance costs are. We don't know any of that kind of stuff. It kind of seems crazy to me. Maybe we do need to bring an expert. But again, I've been here for, I think, 4 different experts we brought in, and every time the select board chose to not listen to the expert. And that seems to me like kind of a crazy thing for us to be doing. There's a lot of easy solutions to this as far as raising the cost it is so that it is a zero-sum thing. But if our select board and the people who are involved in creating this can't figure out how to do this safely, when almost every single community in the United States has a program like this, Hyde Park has a program like this, Eden has a program like this. There's 800 residents in Eden, and yet they have the wherewithal to put together a program to have a summer camp and run a beach. But we can't do it safely in our giant town with this huge budget that we're looking at. It seems like something's off there. So I think it's just a little bit of work. All we heard over and over was how hard it is to figure out how to solve these challenges, and we didn't really hear solutions to the challenges. We just heard, let's just cut the program, and then we don't have to try to solve any of the problems. And a job that we haven't even had anybody. How many hours in the past year did we have a rec coordinator here? Does anybody know the answer to that?
40 hours every week since
10 months.
10 months,
But I'm pretty sure she was out on maternity leave for the majority of the year.
after the program.
Yeah.
It was after the program finished.
Okay, but that's the time that we need to spend for the next year. Like we've talked about training, and now you're saying, well, if we do the program, maybe we'll go 5 weeks because we need 3 weeks of training that should be happening now. And instead we're doing nothing and we wait until the day it starts. Like last year, we
Thank
literally
you,
waited.
Brian.
We waited till, give me one more minute, because I've been in a million of these meetings and you've never held anybody to 2 minutes, except now when you don't want to deal with it.
Brian,
So,
thank you.
Okay, have a great day. I'm very.
Next.
So disappointed. I cannot express it. Everyone here is, and then.
Thank you, folks. Thanks.
Get up and down.
Hi, I'm Jeff Elum. I live on Congress Street. Thank you to the select board and everyone who put together these materials. I don't have kids. I don't really know much about summer camp. But I went to summer camp. I was fortunate enough to go to summer camp when I was little. I think it's really important to give the kids in our town and our community the opportunity to learn and grow throughout the summer, and important to give their parents the time to be able to work and kind of continue whatever they need to do during the summer. I strongly support figuring out a way to keep the summer programs that we have in the town. And yeah, thank you again.
Thank you, Jeff. Anybody else? Anybody on Zoom that would like to speak?
I think Tony Cody's waving at the camera.
Somebody's waving.
Top right. Top right.
Is it Tony Cuddy?
Is that Sheila? Sheila's iPhone?
Oh, yeah, so are you?
You're muted right now, Sheila's iPhone.
Because she had texted me they couldn't get on, so they got on.
I can't unmute them, so.
Okay. Unfortunately, Sheila's iPhone, you're muted.
Here comes IT.
If they bump on, they can start.
Okay. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak?
There's someone coming, she's almost here. Mariah.
I just have a question. I think part of the.
Can you identify yourself,
My
please?
name is Kent Hedberg.
Ken?
Kent, K-E-N-T, last name Hedberg. I think part of getting the full-time rec coordinator was being able to apply for grants and find grants to help this program. Did we get any? Was that done during that process? Because I remember that was a big push to get the full-time rec coordinator was that. Not that she didn't do a good job. I think she did great. My child had fun, but where did we fall with that?
I think, you can answer this probably better than I, but I think she brought in around $23,000 in grant money, is that correct?
Was that summer or was that last year?
No, she did bring in some funds to purchase a trailer to keep our ice skating stuff in and, that, but not specifically for summer recreation.
Anybody else in the audience? I'm not sure Sheila's iPhone's gonna get turned on.
Yeah. I told him I just texted him and told him to call me.
How's that?
Go ahead.
There we go.
Oh.
Go ahead, Tony. I believe that's you.
Thank you, Don. Say, I just want to make one comment here. That fellow that just stood up there and said we need professionals. Well, we got a professional, and his name is Brent Raymond. He's doing one hell of a job for our town. And if he says we need to cut the rec program, then I think we need to cut the rec program. And the same with the library. All these guys coming in for these meetings one at a time because they got their pet peeve programs they want to keep. That's not the way it works. If you want to keep your programs, you should be coming to the meetings every other week, like all the other taxpayers do that really care about this town.
Yeah, because there's no working parents.
Thank you, Tony. Folks, please, order, please. Thank you, Tony. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak? Go ahead. I'm Jerry Throne. I'm a big supporter of funding the summer camp, but I can't get past the problem of having a place for them to be safe and low liability. Insurance doesn't guarantee it. So I'd like to know what the plans are for not just paying for it and making it budget palatable, but what are the plans to take care of the liabilities and the other things that Brent mentioned? That's item one. Item two, I'm a co-chair on the Morristown Conservation Commission, as you probably know, and we've asked, the Conservation Commission has asked the Select Board to put an item in for funding of the Morristown Conservation Commission to purchase properties so that we can have additional areas to recreate in and to make this town a better place. I'd like to know what's the board's position, if you can tell us. If you can't tell us, that's fine. We will make an assumption and act accordingly. Thank you. So I'd say at this point, Jerry, this was part of the presentation last week. It didn't come up in conversation tonight, but again, we have a budget meeting next week, and there's going to be several more after that. And the Conservation Commission, I think you're referring to perhaps the half cent. Yes. But I think that's certainly a possible conversation in the future. Yeah. Other comments from the audience? I have Carrie up on Zoom.
Hi, my name is Carrie Varner. I'm a taxpayer in Morrisville and also employee of the Morristown Centennial Library. I had a question for the board. I know that you guys went line item by line item at the other town departments, and the library isn't specifically a town department, but there was an $80,000 cut. And I was just wondering where you guys, if you looked at where you imagined that cut would come from, what programs and where you imagine that money would, what would be cut at the library? Would you want us to reduce our hours, reduce staffing, cut programs for the kids, for seniors? Because I'm there every day, pretty much all day, working directly with those groups. And I see how many people it is a place to gather, to congregate, to make friends. I've been a new mom myself and made friends through it, and I've seen plenty of young parents who are working come and know that their kids have a safe place to go. And I really am curious where you imagine that that funding can come from and what you want this town to get rid of in terms of the library. Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie. Other.
It's Tom Cloutier. I'm wondering if the group that's looking for this recreation money can get together. It is needed. I don't think we can afford it right now, but it is needed. If they can get together and do a petition and put it on the ballot for whatever amount that they're looking for, and let the people decide in this town if that's something they want, they vote for it, rather than go through all this, which is hurting the town, personally. It's hurting the town to hear all this. You're either on one side or the other, and that's not what we're looking for. I think we all would love to see that. Although I don't want to see it in our budget, because we are budgeted to death, that's why. So maybe that's a possibility. I have been involved with that before, and it's, I'll be more than happy to sign it.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Okay, come on up.
Jamie Jarrett. We've listened to a lot about financial piece of the program, but I haven't heard anybody talk about the liability piece. And that pertains to the staffing, the certification of staffing, the availability of staffing. As Brent presented it last week, that was the main reason why it was being cut out of the budget. It had nothing to do with the financial piece of it. That was just the leg of it. The actual piece of it was the liability of being able to get proper staffing, the training and certification. Just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you, Jamie. You're correct for reiterating that.
Don't want to listen to it anymore.
Other comments?
Take the car camera off.
It's funny to be here and be late and be talking about.
Identify yourself.
Mariah Stokes, to be talking about the rec program and the way that we watch after our kids, because that's why I was running late, right? I had to watch after my kids. So I just wanted to come and say to that point about the liability, some of the questions that I have are, why would we scrap an entire program if there is a liability issue? It sounded like what was referenced in the report had largely to do with a water situation and maybe lifeguards. Why wouldn't we just eliminate the water component and then that adjusts the liability down? What would the cost be to train the staff or get appropriate staff? What are the numbers of staff that we would need? Why wouldn't we cap the program at a certain number of kids in relation to the number of staff members that we have? I don't understand why we would scrap an entire program because of that. It just seems a little short-sighted and not very solution mindset based. I think that a lot of the people who benefit the most from the summer rec program probably don't have the luxury of being in this room and talking tonight. They probably don't have the childcare, the transportation, and they may not even have had the information that this was happening. I'm assuming that we would have had to have a tent venue, kind of like when the short-term rental things were going on, if the people who really, really were going to suffer the most from this were aware that this was going to be scrapped entirely. So to kind of some of my questions, I also am curious what has dramatically shifted from the early 90s when I went to the rec program and it was kids watching kids to today. If anything, I feel like the kids are more responsible, aware, and genuinely invested in the care that they're providing to our younger members of our community than we were back then. So
Thank you, Mariah.
that's my piece.
Anybody else that would like to speak?
I'll ask if Sheila or Tony are trying to speak because the TV's muted, because I can't mute themselves, so I've muted the TV.
Sheila, Tony, are you there?
Yep.
Can you mute your phone now?
Nope.
No, I can't mute it.
Guess not.
Guess not.
Okay.
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 So
Okay.
if somebody's gonna speak, they gotta put their hand up, just so.
Okay, there we go. So we have no hands up on Zoom. We have anybody in the audience that would like to speak?
You should be able to mute them from your computer. I can't, I've tried.
Okay.
John, I just have a response to, you guys had a question before about what the school's doing, and
I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards.
share what the schools already are
Okay,
doing.
I can talk to you after. Okay, I would entertain a motion to adjourn then.
Are you going through the schedule?
Am I going through the schedule? We don't have a schedule to go through tonight. We will next Monday.
Yeah, but Monday night of the 16th, they should know that we're discussing.
Oh, okay.
That's,
So, yeah, thank you, Laura. So next week, we do have, excuse me, folks. Next week, we do have a regularly scheduled select board meeting at 5:30. And at the end of that meeting, or a continuation of that meeting, will be a continuation of the budget discussion. So that is the plan for now.
and I understand specifically library. Is that, or is that decided yet? No?
As far as I know, that's not definitely decided, but there might be a library presentation at that time.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
And how will you alert the townspeople if that's the case? Because this meeting was
This is like, to answer your question, I mean, like, we warn all meetings, and tonight's meeting was clearly warned, and we have an agenda item. It was Elsa's presentation regarding the summer rec program, so that was clearly on there, and it was identified last week that there would be a budget discussion tonight, so that's been identified, and I've identified that next week will be a budget discussion as well. So,
I had to go
excuse-
by a venue speak to find us on a calendar. It's in.
go ahead, Judy.
On the schedule.
Folks, Ken?
Point out that Judy Alberry for the executive assistant for Brent Raymond. The agendas are all posted on our website, which is morristownvt.gov, right on our front page. I hate my back being like this, I'm sorry, folks. There is a agendas and minutes on the very front page. If you click that, you can see all the meetings. And also if you go to the town's calendar, you can see all the meetings there as well. And then they're in our front window, they're at Morrisville Water and Light, they're at the post office. I think sometimes the library posts them on their boards, so they are out there.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you very much.
Yeah,
I would entertain, excuse me, folks. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
So I have a motion by Richard, and I have a second by Laura. Do I have any discussion? Hearing no discussion. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That would be unanimous.